Best of r/malicious compliance episode 38. Last week, I asked my boss if the 6th of January was a paid holiday for us. We live in a Latin American country, so it is generally a holiday. I would have had any problem working that day, except I'm a Catholic and I had to go to mass that day for the celebration of the Epiphany, and the only mass my parish would offer was at 11 a.m. I was even willing to work the afternoon. But then the boss, fully knowing the answer to my question, went and fetched my contract to rub it in my face that I only get 4 paid holidays: New Year, Good Friday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and told me I could take it from my accumulated vacation days. I took it, and I also looked at my contract at home and discovered that it says that because of the nature of my job, my work time is not limited to 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. I took this to mean not only that overtime paid at a regular rate can happen, but that it's 100% okay if I don't meet the 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week. Lately I've been using the contract to grant myself permission to do many things because the contract says so, is vague, or doesn't mention it. Thank you. Next. I hope this complies with Rule 6. If not, or if you're not interested in children's MC, take note. Let's face it, you gotta hand it to kids, they are crafty little buggers. My oldest, still a toddler, has a habit of waking up well before wife and I would like to wake up, especially now that we're dealing with a toddler, 2 months, and middle of the night feedings, etc. A few days ago, after yet another early morning wake up, my wife made an agreement with the child. If it's dark outside and wife or I haven't come to her room yet, she has the option to use her tablet. It's a child-proof tablet with educational games she likes and some videos. Win-win for all of us. We get a little more sleep in the morning, the child gets to play her games, everyone's happy. Last night, 7 p.m, the child is in bed, ready to go to sleep. Bedtime story, kiss goodnight, the end. Right? Wrong? 9:30 p.m. suddenly the child calls out from her room. She occasionally has night terrors, so we run over to her room to see what's wrong. Her tablet stopped working and she needed help restarting it. See, my wife's wording was ambiguous. It was dark outside. We had both left her room after saying goodnight, so she got out of bed and got her tablet, and then spent the next 2.5 hours playing on it. Needless to say, we learned our lessons and changed the wording of when she's allowed to use her tablet, and will also put it away in a safe place at night, taking it out before she wakes up in the morning. Thank you. Next. One from a couple of years ago. First post on Reddit. Shooting e-commerce for a living. New customer wants prices for jewelry and sends reference images from the Tiffany & Co website. Spent a couple of days with it and realized that once you're above life size, jewelry isn't pretty. Tested most available auto retouching software, but it really wasn't good. Certainly not up to the reference image standard, so hand retouching was the way to go, and I gave a one-man day rate of £350. Customer says he needs per item rates and he knows someone who will do it for £30 a piece. I was looking closer to £90 on average. I asked for examples of his work and was pointed to a generic high street site with 600x600px images all auto retouched. Sorry, what happened to Tiffany & Co? And I'm already thinking we're not going to get on. So of course I was happy to match price and quality if that's what the customer needs. I'll just put my wasted 2 days down to experience. First shoot day arrives and it's blister-packed gemstones rather than actual jewelry for a bespoke ring service. They're certified as inspected and genuine, but the certification is only valid whilst the blister pack remains intact. So I set up my station. There's no fiddly standing items, no styling, no retouching, no alternative views, no removing stands and fishing line. They're just blister packs. One front view, one closer in. Customer sidles over after an hour and says, "What's the rate for this morning?" It's not a day rate, it's £30 an item delivered, matched to the reference images you sent. Okay, and sidles away again. I shot 112 gems in 2 hours. Edit and delivery took 1 hour. £3,360. 00 for 3 hours work versus the minimum half day of £175. 00 I originally quoted. I doubt I'll ever meet a better customer. Thank you. Next. TL. Doctor, take away my ability to run my department effectively. I'll take away your bonus. I've worked for a call center for about 10 years, worked my way up to management level. We've always been given a lot of autonomy to handle issues within our departments, so long as we document everything and follow established guidelines. No making up rules, no firing someone for breaking a rule that you let slide for someone else, etc. I've always prided myself on being a good manager and having a low turnover rate. I try to take care of my people and give chance after chance for someone to make necessary corrections. But unfortunately, I do have to terminate employment somewhat regularly. About 3 months ago, my center got a new manager, Harry. Harry had plenty of call center management experience and looked great on paper. He had big ideas and wanted to help create a more positive and fun culture in the office. I'm all for it. The job is draining, especially for the reps on the phones. So anything we can do to boost morale is a huge plus in my book. Straight off the bat, Harry was a bit standoffish to me. I chalked it up to shyness, kept about my business, and figured we'd warm up as we got to know each other. I was incorrect. It may be important to note that, while the office was without a senior manager, a lot of those responsibilities fell to me. I was the most senior and most tenured manager at the site, but I didn't want the site manager position on a permanent basis. Before Harry got there, any issues that needed to be handled, maintenance requests, facilities issues, dole requests, a higher up who needs to step in to assist another manager with an employee incident, you name it, fell to me. I was more than happy to step back and let Harry take the reins, but of course made myself available to assist during the transition. One thing my reps will tell you, I am strict but I am fair. If you mess up, I'm going to tell you and coach you on how to fix it, but I'm not going to be breathing down your neck. I enforce the same rules for everyone. If you're having a bad day, you can come talk to me about it. If your car breaks down and you're screwed on transport, I'll adjust your schedule and try to help you figure something out. I truly understand that I can't do my job if I don't have reps who are willing to come to work and do theirs, so I try very hard to support them in any appropriate way possible. On Harry's second or third week, we had a rep who had been a NCNS for about 5 days. Our company policy allows 2 before termination. Because I knew of this rep situation, I held off on the term and tried to reach out to make sure everything was okay. To be quite honest, we rarely actually term at 2. We usually give at least 3 before the term is processed, sometimes because it takes us until the 3rd day to catch it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make contact. I knew he was physically safe and healthy, because some of his friends worked there and told me he was just not answering us. I assumed that he had found another position and just not bothered to tell us, not an uncommon occurrence. Sad to say, I processed the termination as job abandonment on day 5 of NCNS. Day 6, the rep turns up and is surprised and angry that he can't log in. I'd let Harry know about the situation from day 3, and alerted him as soon as the rep came in on day 6. I pulled the rep into Harry's office and asked him if everything was okay, and why he hadn't been at work or called us in about a week. The following is a paraphrased conversation that we had. Me, we haven't heard from you since X, and you haven't been to work since Y. Because our policy assumes job abandonment after 2 no-call no-shows, we've actually processed a termination for you. Rep, I was busy. Me, I understand that things happen, and I'm glad to know you're doing okay, but it's your responsibility to contact us if you're going to miss work. We even tried contacting you a few times before processing the term but never heard back. Rep, I got your message. I was busy. I'm here now. Me, I understand, but again, we have to follow the procedure. We had no way of knowing whether you intended to return because you never contacted us. Your employment has been terminated. I have termination paperwork, including signed handbook acknowledgement with NCNS policy highlighted and signed attendance policy, available for you. Rep, wow, you're stupid. I was obviously coming back. Let me just go log into my phone before I say something out of pocket. I'm done with this conversation. Me, unfortunately you can't log into your phone, as you are no longer employed here. Here is your paperwork. From there, the rep got loud and started cursing. I remained calm and kept repeating that he was no longer employed and needed to leave. During this entire conversation, Harry said not one word. I eventually got the rep to leave, and as soon as he was out of the building, Harry asked to speak with me. Harry, OP, the way you handled that was extremely unprofessional. You should have let him back. Now he's going to talk badly about us and we'll have a horrible reputation. Me. I'm sorry? I'm confused. I followed the policy. I gave him the opportunity to show us he contacted us. He said he never did. We're supposed to term after 2. I gave him 5. Harry, but he came back. If this is the way you were running the center before me, no wonder your turnover rate is so high. You can't run people off. Y'all, I was heated. First of all, I was running the site by myself for 3 months. It's 500 people. Secondly, I fail to see how someone else disappearing for 5 days and then not being allowed back constitutes me running them off. Thirdly, our turnover rate was lower at that point in time than it had been in over a year. I said, alright, I'm not sure how this situation is me running someone off, but fine. Please let me know which policies you'd like me to enforce and which ones I should ignore, and walked out. Probably not the smartest move, but I needed to get out of that room. I took a quick break to control my temper and went back to my computer. Sitting on top of my inbox was a message from Harry to all management. Effective immediately, all employee terminations must be cleared through Harry last name. Any manager who terminates employment of a representative without proper authorization will face disciplinary action. This includes termination for job abandonment. Any write-ups must be performed with senior management as witness. Cool. I got you, Harry. Cue malicious compliance. I had a stack of attendance write-ups on my desk that I had been planning to perform with another junior manager. I sent an email to Harry and requested 60 minutes of his time to witness write-ups with me. I have 108 employees in my department. About 20 needed to be written up. He asked for the documentation, which I provided. He then sent me an email that said, "These are not authorized. Request denied." Awesome. I moved on with my day. Now, Harry gets a bonus if all departments meet billable hours each month. I'm not supposed to know this, but being at the company for so long, I hear a lot of things I shouldn't because they forget I'm not an executive team member. It's my job as manager of my department to ensure we meet those hours. What's the best way to ensure we meet billable hours? Hold people accountable for their attendance. What's the best way to hold people accountable for their attendance? Write them up for their excessive infractions, terminate the ones who refuse to resolve the issues, and replace with a new class. Harry just took that power away from me. We missed billable hours in September. In the first week of October, I requested another hour of Harry's time to review attendance with the reps and perform retoups. He denied it again. Our attendance was atrocious at this point, as reps knew there would be no consequences for missing work. In October, we missed billable hours and didn't meet some of our contractual obligated service levels, so my company had to give a credit on the bill. Enter November. I request another attendance write-up meeting. I am again denied. I send an email with the reps that have not shown up for work for 5+ days, some of them more than 10 days, and request to terminate them so a new class can be added. I am denied. At this point, the last week of November, our executive team is up in arms and wants to know why we've failed for the last 2 months and projected to fail this month. Harry has a meeting with them about how management, read me, is creating a hostile environment and morale in the center is low. I am unaware of this meeting until I get an email setting up a call with our CEO and my direct executive manager, not Harry, to discuss my department. Remember, I've been here 10 years. These people have known me since I was a teenager and know my work ethic and standards. CEO, OP, what's going on down there? You guys have been missing numbers left and right. That's not you. Me. I agree. We're having a major issue with attendance and haven't been able to fix it. It's affecting our staffing levels. Exec, what do you mean? You've been at a steady 108 since September. Are you scheduling correctly? Are you checking reports to adjust? Me. Our official headcount is 108, but in reality we're only at 84, with 10 of those reps working 20 hours or fewer each week. CEO, what? How is that possible? Exec, what do you mean? Why haven't you asked for an attrition class? Me. I have been following the new policy that all terminations or new class requests must be approved by Harry. He has not given me approval for either. Exec. New policy? Me. Yes, I can forward you the notification we received. I've requested terminations and classes so that we can report the true headcount and fix the service level issues, but I haven't gotten any requests approved. CEO, please forward the notification and any communication immediately. We'll follow up with you shortly. I forwarded the email from Harry, and every time I've requested written meetings, termination approval, or new hire classes and gotten denied. The exec called me a short while later and asked me to give her a full rundown. She said she would take care of it. The next morning, all managers, about 20 of us, including the executive team, were invited to a mandatory meeting. We were told in no uncertain terms that any policy changes would come directly from the CEO, and that effective immediately we all had the authority to write up and terminate employees as appropriate. I was given authority to request an attrition class immediately. Harry was asked, in front of all of us, to remain on the line with the executives while the rest of us got off. A short while later, the managers received emails that our bonus policy was changing. We would each be receiving bonuses based on meeting billable hours. Remember that bonus Harry was getting? Yeah, they took it away from him and gave it to us. Guess who made billable hours for December? Every single department. Turns out, when you let people do their jobs and give them an incentive for doing it well, they care about the work they are doing. Thank you. Next. Mobile. This story was told to me by one of my uncle's former co-workers. He used to be a deputy for his sheriff's department. A deputy that worked in my uncle's department pulled over a family for speeding, and when he went up to the driver's side window, he quickly discovered that the family inside spoke very little/no English. So doing what any other person would do, they radioed in Deputy Gonzalez. My uncle rolls up to the scene, meets with the deputy there, and asks what seems to be the issue. The family over there doesn't speak any English, so I need you tell them that I pulled them over for speeding and translate into Spanish for me. My uncle thinks for a moment, nods, and walks up to the car with the other deputy in tow. Buenos dias. He tells the car como estas? The family replies, and my uncle continues. Donde está el bano? The family laughs, and my uncle continues again. Mi comida favorita es la pizza. At this point, I should mention that my family in extended branches don't and haven't spoken Spanish since my great-grandfather immigrated here many years ago, and the language was lost almost immediately after becoming a U.S. citizen. My uncle's understanding of the language doesn't venture much past an exploratory course he took in 7th grade. The other deputy is confused. My uncle stands up, the driver still giggling, looks at the deputy, nods, and says no hablo español, buddy, and leaves the scene. The other deputy let the family go. Thank you. Next. So I recently started posting to Reddit, and I have a lot of stories. This one happened during my first career, when I worked as a scientist in a diagnostic lab. I had been working for about 2 years at this point and had just been promoted to senior scientist. I had 2 supervisors in my section, each assigned to oversee half of the tests being done in our small corner of the lab, Rory and Tanya. Tanya was the senior-most supervisor of the 2, and secondary to my department head, she had the most authority over me on any given day. She also hated me. Never did figure out why, but she hated about 3/4 of the people working in the lab, so I never took it personally. I just don't think she liked people. The lab tends to attract people like that. Funnily enough, we always used to joke about being the rejects stuffed in a hole at the bottom of a hospital to be kept away from the general public. As for Rory, it's important to note that he had a very good reputation in the lab of never lying. He was never once caught in even a half-truth, and he'd been working there for over 30 years. He was well liked and well trusted. This will be important later. One day I was doing one of the more technically challenging tests that our department performs. It's long, fiddly, expensive, and easy to screw up. Only senior scientists are allowed to do it unsupervised, and this was maybe the second time I've done it alone. We are talking 2 days just to get it set up. It was a nightmare. While I was measuring out some gelatin powder into a beaker, I accidentally elbowed Tonya. Our workstations were right on top of each other. This happened at least 4-5 times a day with everyone. I apologized and go back to what I was doing, but she flips out. Like full on rage, screaming in my face, kind of angry. After a couple of minutes of her tirade, she says, "Just fuck off, terrific moose. No one wants you here." And then she storms off to her office to cool off. Rory comes up to me, having seen and heard the whole thing, and asks if I'm alright. I say I'm a little shaken, but nothing too bad, and get ready to continue my work. But Rory had heard the whole thing, and he saw what test I was doing. He whispers to me, "Your supervisor told you to go. Best you do what she says, and if she causes a fuss about it, I'll be sure to tell the boss exactly what she said to you." Now, I knew Rory's reputation, so I knew I'd be safe. I also know that being told to leave early by a supervisor meant that I was still paid out for the rest of the day, provided I had worked at least 4 hours of my shift. The lab was actually pretty generous with time off, even if the pay and working conditions were shit. So I did exactly what Tonya had said. I fucked off home. Now at the stage I was at with that particular test, I had spent about $4,000 worth of reagents. Normally batches of 20 samples are run to try and keep the cost down, but it was still an expensive test when you include the nearly 3 days of work from a single scientist. This was one of Tanya's tests, and therefore Rory was not required to ensure it was done. No one in my section was very happy with Tanya, and she had gone off to her office and so couldn't see me leave, so no one went to tell her that the test was left unsupervised. Apparently she didn't come back for over an hour, and by then the test was ruined and had to be started over again. My boss was pissed. Tanya of course tried to throw me under the bus, saying I had left without informing anyone and that it was all my fault. But good old trustworthy Rory told the boss exactly what Tanya had said. I love Rory. I couldn't be punished for doing exactly what my supervisor had told me to do, so I got away with it completely. Unfortunately, nothing overly terrible happened to Tonya. She got formally reprimanded and had to take an anger management course that the hospital runs, but otherwise she got no real punishment. She never yelled at me again, and was always careful to word things just right around me after that though, so that was something. As for what I did on my half day off, I went to the beach to enjoy the sunshine I almost never got to see working in the deep dark dungeon that is the average hospital lab. I made sure to bring in the pictures the next day. Thank you. Next. So I work in a professional tax services company. Everyone in my team is assigned an amount that they charge their time per hour based upon seniority. I don't earn my per hour rate charge, and the actual cost to the firm for the work I do is probably a third to a half of my per hour rate when you factor in needing to pay for admin staff, rent, utilities etc. for the company as a whole, as well as needing to make a profit from work. I complete a timesheet and write a comment saying whatever I'm doing now, so it's all on our system, and that today I'd spent 3 hours doing this on this client. When we get new clients we determine that they need to do X, Y and Z and then say we believe this will cost this in total. This is done so the client knows what they can expect to pay rather than saying here's our per hour rates, but it could end up being any random price billed to you upon completion. It tends to be industry standard that you don't end up billing all of the time due to this quote, which in most cases you stick to so that the client doesn't get annoyed and leave. In my firm it's normal to recover about 70-80% of the time charged to the client, but in larger firms it can be significantly less because their per hour rates are set much higher and their overheads are split between more people. A few years ago I had a client where we'd agreed that the work we were doing would cost X to do this, Y to do that etc, and when we completed it I sent them a bill saying X completed, X charged, Y completed, Y charged etc. I believe it was 70% of the total time put on the client, so within our accepted recovery of the time charged. Her husband, who I'd never properly spoken to despite it being a set of work that affects both of them, sent me a rather strongly worded email saying that this invoice makes no sense and gives no indication of the time spent. I said that this was in line with what we said we'd bill that had been previously agreed. He then said that in the professional service industry it was standard across the board to list hours spent etc. It isn't, and for it to be broken down by person as X hours at Y per hour, and he then changed his signature from client to client, attorney at law. I googled him and he was a practicing attorney about 10 years ago but now lectures at a university. Fair enough. I then reiterated that this was the price we'd agreed. He rebutted again, saying that it was unprofessional and that I send him a summary of the time spent. If I'm not mistaken, he changed his signature again to client, attorney at Lawton's Law Uni, i.e. Yale or something. I readed the bill charging him 100% of the time spent, broke it down on the bill of who spent time rather than what we did, and then sent him the internal spreadsheet showing each timesheet entry. Bill went up by 25% but he paid without complaint. Since then I've still done their bills like this and recovered 100% of time charged.